Well, Darren, you've just published the club's accounts for the year ending June 2023. What are the highlights and what do they tell us about the club's progress?
Well, I think it's exciting. It shows the progression that we've had in the club since the takeover. So our revenue has gone up to 250 million. So that's 39%, nearly 40% increase. And the exciting thing is that's 2 consecutive years now of 40% increases. So I think we're showing the potential that we have here at the club in terms of, the commercial possibilities. And so we're excited about that. I think another highlight when you look at it is our amortization on players. So in effect, that's a value of the investment in the squad. That's gone up to 89 million. So that's another increase of around 38 million from last year. So again, I think it shows what we see on the pitch, which is a squad that, we're having more and more depth in the squad, more and more top talent on the pitch. So we're excited about the growth and the trajectory of the club, but obviously there's still a long way to go.
With that 40% rise, and it's, as you say, the second year in a row that's happened, how important is that? Because you've often talked about the importance of increasing revenue to fuel the club's success.
Absolutely, and obviously we've had that back-to-back 40% increases now. From commercial revenue, it was 65% last year. So again, I think that again shows the sort of increased appetite we're getting from commercial partners as Newcastle United is getting seen, Champions League on a global stage, the excitement and the buzz around the journey that this club is on. So that's helping us, but we have to do that. So for us to be able to be a top 6 sustainable club, winning and competing for trophies, which is our aim, we've got a long way to go. If you look at Manchester City, who we play on the weekend, they have over 700 million revenue. You look at someone like a Tottenham Hotspur towards, the lower end of the top 6 clubs. They haven't released their accounts for this year, but for their last year, they were around 444 million. So that sort of puts in perspective the journey that we have to go on. But I think the exciting signs are that we've already got a great base. And of course, in the last year accounts, it doesn't recognise some of the work that's been done for the future. So, for example, Seller with our record front of shirt partnership, that is coming into this year's accounts for, that will be released in June of next year. We're really excited with Adidas. Great, chance to bring that partnership back together and actually to bring retail back to the club, because we haven't had retail as part of our club business for the past few years. So again, those are opportunities in the future. So the future is bright. We've got these great opportunities, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
And with that work that still does need to be done, talk to us a little bit about the investment into the infrastructure that goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah, and I think, look, it's been incredible, the support that we've had from ownership. We have ownerships that are, process-driven, patient, long-term investors, but have also invested in the club in things like the training ground. So over 10 million invested in the capital expenditure for the training ground to improve the facilities. We're excited. We've got the St James's stack coming in the off-season. That's going to be really exciting for the club, because that's something that's going to be open 7 days a week. So, from a fan experience, it's a positive, but also it gives us an opportunity to help people feel connected to the club, not just on a match day, but on non-match days as well. So all across the club, stadium, people and fans will have seen some of the improvements we've made to St James's Park in the time since ownership came in. So across the board, there's that commitment to putting in the expenditure for a long-term return.
And you've touched on it already, but obviously the deals with Seller, with Adidas, what difference are they going to make in the future? Because maybe not so much in this set of accounts, but for the longer term future, what difference do you foresee them making?
Absolutely. I think, we're seeing as each year goes on, it's almost becoming easier for us to attract those commercial partners that we need to go on the journey that we want to do. So, Seller have been wonderful partners in terms of their activation from the drone show that they did before the Champions League. We've got committed partners. We all know with Adidas, it's a match made in heaven between Newcastle United and Adidas, given our history and our heritage. And so the opportunity we have there to grow a retail business and to try and grow that not only, in England, but also globally, all of those things are going to help as we sort of go on this journey. So it's exciting to see that as each season goes by, it's becoming easier and easier to attract those commercial partners, to attract that revenue, and to go back to why we need that. We need that to be able to invest in the team on the pitch, because under financial fair play, under the PSR regulations of the Premier League, there's two ways that you can in effect create that headroom to spend on the team. You've either got to grow your commercial revenues, or through player trading is the other avenue. And so for us, it's important that we look and focus on every avenue we can to create that headroom, because we want to improve that team on the pitch, to improve the resources so that we can be that top 6 sustainable club.
And I suppose that does come across in the accounts, because despite the increase in revenue, the club recorded a loss of 73.4 million, and largely that is due to the spending on players. How does that impact upon the financial fair play or the profit and sustainability rules that you've mentioned there?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right that we had the increase in the revenues. Obviously, I spoke about the increase in player amortization, which is in effect the investment in the squad. So, as you invest more in your team, you have to account for that under the financial fair play regulations. So it is a balancing act, and I think we've always spoken about this. With the ownership that we have, they're committed to spending the maximum we can under the regulations, but we have to meet the regulations. We've seen obviously in a recent case with Everton that PSR certainly has teeth to it. So it's something that we've always been cognizant of. We've always been thinking about this as a project. It's not a straight line from A to B. We're going to have ups and downs because that's football, but we think about everything from that medium to long-term plan. And I think as we grow the revenues, that gives us that capability to be able to invest more into the squad. But I think the other angle of it, and I spoke about this, is, and sometimes it's a little bit counterintuitive, but when you can trade players, sometimes the trading players creates the headroom. And just to give a real sort of basic example, if we have a player that's worth 50 million profit, if we were to move him, if we move that player and bring in a player on the same wages at 50 million, so like for like, we amortize that player over 5 years, it's only a 10 million hit. So the net value of that is you create 40 million of headroom. And I think sometimes that's sort of counterintuitive, that moving of players sometimes is enough to create some more headspace. And we've seen that, I think, with other clubs where, players have been moved on and then the club has reloaded. So, there's always going to be that time when we might say that at this stage, this player's at the right value for us to move on, because it actually creates more headroom for us to reinvest in the squad.
I guess with us being in the midst of the January transfer window, a lot of supporters will want to know, is there a likelihood of incomings? What kind of is the landscape there?
Well, I think firstly, and January is not the greatest window to trade in. The summer's always better. I think it's very difficult to get value in the January window because most clubs don't want to let their better players go at such a crucial time. I also think we're in an interesting spot because we've got a number of very good players that, fortunately been out injured, but second half of the season are going to come back. So I think for us, we're always mindful as well of financial fair play. So I think, we always take that view. We did that last year when Anthony Gordon came in the January, that we'll be flexible. So when it comes to player trading, we'll make a decision based on the medium to long term for the club and does it make sense. But I think that's the way that we'll approach it. But I think the exciting thing is second half of the season, we've got more time between games. We're not going to be as playing every 3 days just by the nature of the schedule that we have for the second half of the season. With those players coming back, it's going to give us a real opportunity to hopefully get up the table and get into those European spots. We had a great win last week against Sunderland. I think that really gave a sort of spark and a positivity around the club. We've seen that this week. We had our staff photo with everybody, both the men's team, the women's team, and the women's team have been doing incredibly. They still haven't lost a game in the whole of last year, and they've got their big game against Manchester United on the weekend. We've obviously got the first team men's playing Manchester City, so it's all to play for second half of the season. FA Cup, we've got a tricky tie down at Fulham, but that's something that we're competing in FA Cup and that chance to climb up the table now and hopefully get back into Europe.